mi vou per tão forte que pra me sentir calor de vou morrer minha o Cabo Verde. Chega na mi vou per tão forte que pra me sentir calor de vou morrer minha o Cabo Verde. La nota senti na mei nostra tradição. La nota senti na mei nostra tradição. Na mei nostra tradição. Na mei nostra tradição. Na mei nostra tradição. Pensa num cordadeira. Na mei nostra tradição. Pensa na passação, na mei nossa tradição. Pensa na Cabo Verde, na mei nossa tradição. Crola dança mani, na mei nossa tradição. Dança mani, dança. Na mei nossa tradição. Na mei nossa tradição. Na mei nossa tradição.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
2100 hours, it means it is indeed time for Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective, and a very good evening to you. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. Thank you so much for joining us as we bring you a roundup of what's happening in and around your world, whether you're listening or watching from the continent or outside. We're glad to have you with us to get your perspective as we bring you countless stories. One planet, we bring you the voices, the faces, and the perspectives that matter. So you can share yours on +2763 406 9126. That's our WhatsApp number. You can send a voice note or a message on some of the stories that we're covering, or your perspective on what we are covering.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Well, let's start with some of your top stories today. The 75th World Health Organization Regional Committee for Africa conference taking place in Zambia has come to a close with a commitment by member states to prioritize health despite the numerous challenges facing the continent. And we saw there speaking at the conference Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema highlighting the urgent need to manufacture its own medicine.
We need to position health as a driver for regional trade and industrialization. Should we depend on someone outside of this continent for a painkiller? Absolutely not. To address these challenges, and Zambia will take the lead in the Corella local vaccine manufacturing, and other countries must do other things. Then we don't duplicate.
And from Zambia, we take you to news about this, and that is Mozambique's president, or rather 7 migrants being deported from the United States to Rwanda. They've become the first group to arrive in the East African country under a new deal. A Rwandan government spokesperson, Yolande Makolo, says only 4 would remain, with 3 opting to return to their home countries. The BBC's Temezgen Debesai reports.
The arrival of the 7 deportees marks the start of an agreement between Washington and Rwanda, which could see up to 250 migrants resettled in the East African nation. It's not been revealed where they're originally from. The Trump administration has also been negotiating third-country deportation deals with other African states, including South Sudan and Eswatini, arguing they're necessary when home countries refuse to accept returnees. Rwanda has faced criticism over its human rights record and concerns that deported migrants may face further removal to unsafe nations, but the government there insists it can provide protection.
Mozambique's President Daniel Chapo is in Rwanda on a 2-day working visit where he and President Paul Kagame held excellent relations between their countries and signed new bilateral agreements, including a status of forces agreement to strengthen security cooperation. Independent political analyst and risk consultant Marissa Lorenzo says the two nations can benefit from each other.
I would say that all of this is built on existing cooperation and security framework, which at some point one has been, taking place in restoring peace in Cabo Delgado since 2022, where Rwanda sent soldiers to subdue the attacks, which has been, ravaging the area by the jihadists, the jihadists in that area. So I would say that the visit by the first state visit by the 5th president of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, was to some point to enhance this cooperation.
And Uganda heads to the elections next year. Country faced with socio-economic issues include persistent poverty and inequality, the widespread corruption allegations and claims of electoral misconduct. How now has at least 50 people who've shown interest in running for the 2026 vote. Kelo Peace Marisha, an activist passionate about writing, education and community transformation, says he will be among those vying for the votes of the nations.
It's so hard in these polls, and our ability to stand out will stand on the values that we bring. In a country like mine, the elections are highly monetized. That is one. So it comes back down to who has the paper, who can run the polls better, who can convince people. And at the end of the day, you get to realize that our politics is not idea based. At the end of the day, it's about, the vibe and all that. Our campaign is built on a clear vision. We want to empower the youth, we want to fight corruption, and ensuring that, the fragmented agendas that have been promised over the years are seen come to pass.
And finally, people have taken to the streets in Indonesia for the second time this week to protest against what they see as excessive pay and benefits for lawmakers. Protesters demanded an end to outsourcing, low wages and mass layoffs, and have called for a special task force to monitor job cuts. They also urged labour tax reforms, including raising the non-taxable income threshold. The BBC's Adu Destra Ajengrasti has the details.
The demonstrations were initially led by labor alliances demanding a minimum wage increase in 2026. As of now, the labor protesters have mostly left the street, but more student groups are now arriving at the scene. They are targeting what they see as lawmakers' lavish lifestyle, with many criticizing parliamentary perks and allowances that can reach up to 30 times the average worker's wage. More than 4,000 police officers have been deployed across the capital.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802.
And of course, you can also find us on the SABC Plus app. You can stream live from there. You watch us on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, and that's where you'll find us on TikTok and Instagram as well. And now to our top story, or one of the top stories, is our delegates wrapping up the second day of the 27th Interpol African Regional Conference underway in the South African city of Cape Town. Today's program focused on financial crime on the continent. The 3-day conference has gathered ministers, police chiefs, and security experts from around the world to discuss strategies on how to combat emerging security threats, transnational organized crime, and terrorism. The SABC's Amahle Dutoy was there.
Delegates discussed how Interpol's cutting-edge technological tools can assist in the fight against financial crime and corruption in Africa. According to the authorities, between 50 and 80 billion US dollars are lost each year due to illicit money flows on the continent. The Namibian Police Force Deputy Inspector General Anne-Marie Nainda says utilizing Interpol's capabilities will help in the fight against transnational organized crime. Nainda also highlighted the importance of partnerships to succeed in combating crime in the SADC region.
Namibia and South Africa is a long-term, solid relationship as neighbors. And over the years, we have even conducted joint investigations. Because of the free movement of people and goods between our two countries, there are always crimes committed either in Namibia or in South Africa, and then we exchange a lot of joint activity, starting from our cross-border patrols, from a prevention perspective, as well as in complex criminal investigations. We always work together and share our capabilities, our experience and expertise to address some of these challenges.
National Commissioner of SAPS General Fani Masemula says the expertise shared within the conference will help with the many challenges Africa faced. Reference was made to the Western Cape, which has seen a spike in gang and taxi-related violence in recent weeks. Masemula says more than 200 police officers from outside the province have been deployed in the past month to help combat the increase in shooting incidents. He says the main priority of the police is to arrest gang members and not just leaders.
Resources we do have, what we have here, we think we can be able to tackle the gang violence in the Western Cape. Of course, we're also going to tap on other government departments to come on board, deal with other social matters, issues that are of a problem, and especially issues of environmental design, accessibility in terms of policing, and of course also the kids that don't go to school that becomes vulnerable and become victims for gangs to recruit and use them. So that doesn't require police and these other departments to take care of those kids. But in terms of, yes, fighting gangs, in terms of having them firearms and drugs, that's our job.
The symposium ends on Friday. I'm Amahle Dutoy, SABC News in Cape Town.
All right, so while we remain on the issue of some of the challenges that the continent faces, and speaking of matters of safety, security, and of course justice, the images of burning ties and barricaded roads have become somewhat of a familiar sight in post-apartheid South Africa, often seen as a sign of chaos and unreasoned anger. But what if these militant protests are not the beginning of the community's fight, rather the last resort? Today, we joined by Kenny Chiwawara, a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Johannesburg and the author of a very thought-provoking article, South Africa's Service Delivery Crisis, Why Protesters Are Using More Militant Tactics. Kenny's research in townships like Gugulethu and Khayelitsha reveals a more complex narrative, he says, that communities often turn to radical tactics only after exhausting all peaceful means. Kenny, a very good evening to you, and thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us about this article.
Thank you so much, Tabiso, and thank you to Channel Africa for having me.
So what sparked your interest in this type of paper, and is it because of the increasing number of violent protests that we are seeing in South Africa?
Thank you for that. So what sparked my interest was the amount of protests that I witnessed and that we heard about. And so I wanted to know why these protests are being done, why they're often called violent in nature, or that they are violent. So I wanted to understand from the people involved in these protests.
You use a very potent metaphor from a priest that you interview who said, the protests, who compared the protests to pinching a sore arm. So can you just explain to us this analogy and its significance in understanding the rationale behind these protests and also the steps before that are taken that are less reported on?
Thank you. So before I get to that analogy, I just want to talk about the tend to protest. And as you said in your introduction, that often we think that people have an appetite to protest, and yet that's not the case. We are not even talking about the violent protests, so-called violent protests, and I want to be careful when I use that term violent. If given time, I'll explain a little bit what that really is. But before people even protest, and I'm talking about the more orderly, more peaceful means of protest, before they do, they often engage in other rounds of engagement to try to ensure that whatever they're asking for is met or their demands are met. It's only when these other means of engagements, like writing letters, meeting with the counselors, meeting with the officials, when these do not yield result, that's when people protest. And even when they protest, they don't start with the so-called violent protest. And I'm saying the so-called because if someone is blocking a road, a number of scholars, for example, Alexander and the team, found that it can be called a violent protest when people are blocking a road. It's a disruptive one, but it's not violent. But then I found in my own study that even the term violent should be divided into vandalistic kind of protests where people are destroying property but not attacking people. But then when people are attacked or targeted, then that's what I then consider more violent protests. And so what we see is that people often start by engaging in these other peaceful and orderly means before they engage in protest. So this pastor then, if I'm to turn to the analogy, the pastor, it was quite interesting because there were a number of other pastors that were close to this pastor. And so to hear him admit to say, well, sometimes some pain should be put in order for people or the government to respond. He said very clearly that violence is not good, but sometimes it becomes necessary in order for us to get what we are asking for. And he was saying that if there is a sore arm, that you have a sore arm and you are in pain and you are ignoring that sore arm, if someone comes and pinches that sore arm or that place where it's sore, chances are you're going to do something about it. And so the implication of that was that the government is aware that the toilets are not in good condition, that the water the situation is bad, the electricity situation is not good, but that they tend to ignore. This is the feeling from the community, that they tend to ignore this. But when we do certain things, that will then bring about the officials to take notice. For example, in Cape Town, there was a time when protesters threw human excrements at the airport. And then there are times when people block the road, and they say that kind of pinching will bring about discomfort to the government because it's concerned about its image. And in the process, it will pressure the officials to deliver the services. So that was the kind of analogy that was being made there.
So two things. You mentioned the word pressure, and you also questioned the use of the word violence when referring to these protests. And I understand why, but I was just actually thinking about the terminology. Obviously, there's a physical aggression when we refer to violence where, as you say, where people are hurt. But just thinking further on it, the people who are embarking on these protests probably feel a certain violence being imposed on them when a government that is charged with their basic human rights does not deliver on that. And I suppose that pressure also leads to them wishing or imposing a certain violence on the system. If you see how some of these violent protesters burn libraries, burn schools, do you care to go down this road with me?
Yes, I thank you for raising that. I think some scholars call it structural violence, where there are things that are in place right now that if someone is super hungry and they do not have anything to feed themselves, what is bringing about that? And so, I can try to even venture into student protests here and say that sometimes, it's because often what actually happens, and there are studies to show that that the violence that sometimes happens is because it has been, people protesting have been provoked. That often they are actually peaceful, but they are provoked. And so some even go as far as to say they are responding, like you just alluded to, they are responding to violence that is happening every day in their communities, in their in the kind of living conditions they find themselves in. It's actually it's actually a pastor who used to have these walks, and that's not the pastor that I interviewed, by the way, but this individual used to have these marches from Guguletu to Khayelitsha during Easter time, and he would say that welcome to hell, South African townships. But again, he was talking about the conditions that are there. And in some sense, then the violence is the response to what people live with every day that they consider to be violent in a very important sense.
And corruption is a perfect example of that. I mean, the spirit of South Africans who have to endure that because they not only have lack of job opportunities, just the squalor that they're forced to live in, that continues, that violence on the spirit, on the soul of South Africans, endemic of breakdown in the social contract. And I'm just wondering if in your interviews, have you seen people react differently to these service delivery protests from a township to township? And was it just in the Western Cape that you did your research, or did you go beyond that?
Thank you. So for this particular research, I did it for my master's, I did in Guguletu, and for my PhD, I did in Guguletu and in Khayelitsha. So that was still in Cape Town. But other studies elsewhere in South Africa, they still show the same kind of things, the same kind of frustration. For example, I remember the other article that was written titled "Violence is the only language that this government hears." But not just the violence, but just that protest is a language that is used, that is heard. Because when there is no protest, then there is a sense in which people feel that our demands are not being met. But when there is that pressure, then they begin to see certain things happening. So it appears to be something that is prominent throughout the country.
Interestingly enough, on my way here, I was listening to a colleague interview a trader in the Marabastad area, and he was just speaking about the difficulties of having to deal with Metro Police, and because of the city's failure to ensure conducive conditions for them to trade. But I liked how he brought it down to a human level and said, when they prevent us from trading, imagine what happens to the person who has to buy vegetables to cook for a funeral that's happening tomorrow. So when we talk about public participation, is there any real meaning to it if people see a non-responsive government? And how can municipalities, for instance, improve their communication?
I think that's a very important point that you raise. I think sometimes there's a sense, I think, in communities, and I think, but the sense is that sometimes there's a feeling that this is just to rubber stamp that there was participation, but there wasn't real participation, and perhaps there was a decision already made about what the direction a particular thing is going to go. But there is a sense in which people in communities also, and I think this is quite important to raise, that in Guguletu, for example, they were able to point to some councillors who were doing well, and they would say, we had a councillor, for example, who would listen to us, and we thought that there was progress, but then her term came to an end, and then another one came and who said, I'm not aware of the arrangements that you had made with the previous ones. So I think it's quite important for me to raise that, even though, community members raised issues that they are not happy about, they also raise other issues where they say there are others who are responsive, there are others who consult with us, but then there are others who do not consult with us.
Now, you spoke about the importance of the distinction between categorizing what you say, service delivery protests, and not call it local political protests. Can you explain the differences according to your understanding? But also, I want to also factor in what we've also seen, a growing gripe against foreign nationals because of limited resources. So the nature of protests, has it changed to local political protests because of some of these issues?
Thank you for raising that. I think that in my own study, which focused more on the services, housing, electricity, water, refuse removal, in those kinds of protests, I saw that although they had a local political nature, that they focused on a particular geographical place. And so some scholars have even said that perhaps we should call them community protests, not service delivery protests, because they extend beyond just service delivery to talk about jobs, to talk about crime, and many other jobs as well that you've just mentioned now. I would say that I think the issues that you raise around governance, I think everything rises or falls on leadership. And so I think that it's the responsibility of the government to ensure that they do what they have been asked to do, that what they were elected to do. But I will leave it that in terms of the kind of research that I have done, it was more on service delivery issues in two particular communities.
All right. Thank you so much, Kenny. There's still so much to talk about and unpack, but I really appreciate your insights. Speaking to us about the paper that he wrote, Kenny's research into townships like Guguletu and Khayelitsha, just looking at the nature in which protests have changed over time, expressing South Africans' frustration. Kenny Chiwara is a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of South Africa.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. Stella Longwe, Pamalonje.
Palitu sokoma pano pamalonje. Kumvera nyimbo za mu Africa, kusangalala, kupeza moyo. Akuti kumva moyo kuti kuyenda bwino pano pamalonje. Ndiyetu apa tili ndikatswiri oyimba ameneyu ndikatswiri wa dziko la Malawi amene akukhala mdziko la South Africa, ndipo amayimba amene akuti ndi Big Nick Malawi. Yatusani kuti kodi moyo wanu woyimba ukuyenda bwanji mu Johannesburg?
Moyo woyimba ukuyenda bwinobwino kwambiri, chiliyonse chikutheka ndithu bwinobwino.
Ayi aziwoneka chiliyonse chikutheka mofa magrasi anu apa mwaka. Akuti kumenya yonse aziwoneka zoti azikutheka ndithu mu Johannesburg.
Malonje, panthawi ya 6 koloko kufikira 7 koloko madzulo. Lowiruka ndi Stella Longwe. Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Mozambique's opposition leader Venancio Mondlane has been charged with incitement to terrorism and disobedience. He faces a total of 5 charges. The charges relate to post-election violence that left hundreds of people dead. What punishment is he looking at?
The most severe charges are 2. One is incitement for terrorism, and also is being charged for mobilizing people for terrorism. terrorism during the protests. These charges are really serious and severe. If he is condemned, is found guilty, he could serve 10 years plus years in jail, meaning that he would be banned from political participation, mainly for the 2028 and 2029 electoral cycle.
The director of CDD, the Center for Democracy and Development, Adriano Novunga.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
And it is 28 minutes past 9. You are still listening to Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you've been enjoying some of the content that we've been bringing you. And we'd like to hear from you. What else you would like to hear from us? Perhaps reflect what's happening in your community and the perspectives that you have in your community. So please do write to us. We'll talk about women in science in just a moment, but just a reminder that later on in the program we are going to talk about this, the Hello Africa World Hour, or rather, it is Hello Africa World Hour. So we're going to talk about the music Imbizo. So it's taking place here in South Africa. We'll tell you a little bit more about it and what's happening there in just a moment.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet, Channel 628. When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio.
This August, we celebrate the strength, brilliance, and unstoppable spirit of African women.
It was the women themselves who strove for and got the changes by lobbying, going through NGOs, and by networking.
That's you, ladies. From the boardroom to the classroom, from the marketplace to the microphone, women are leading, innovating, and transforming our continent every day.
Here's to knowing that as a woman, your voice can change the world.
Your voice matters. Your story inspires. Your presence is powerful. This Women's Month, we honor you. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Nighttime radio, just the way you like it. On Channel Africa, where the night comes alive.
And speaking about coming alive, a powerful call for unity and self-determination amongst women in Africa that was made by the Director of Science Diplomacy Capital for Africa at South Africa's Department of Science, emphasizing that technology and innovation are important. Lindiwe Gama said at its critical importance is the collaboration across the African continent on the sidelines of the South Africa Tunisia Women's Day celebration in Pretoria. Gama praised the decade-long science and technology partnership between the two nations, crediting strong leadership, shared commitment and resource support for the success of the program. She also urged South Africans, especially young women, to seize opportunities. Collective pursuit of knowledge and growth and development. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe spoke to Lindiwe Gama.
From the speeches in the morning, I think what the Deputy Minister really impressed on was collaboration amongst African countries for the Africa we want, so that we can do things for ourselves. And I think also the Ambassador spoke about the importance of collaboration. And of course, the discussions really showed that science knows no borders. And as women, we also need to stand up, take our positions, and don't feel intimidated. And we must not be scared. You would have seen from the videos that were shown where women even left their countries. I mean, I was impressed by the women from Tunisia who left their country to come to South Africa and work here. And I guess it's something that we can also learn from as South Africans, where we can be able to go outside and learn from other African countries. I think there's so much potential in Africa. And of course, with the challenges that we are having that are the same, we can learn from each other. And as South Africans, we must also just come out and start working with other African countries. We have been looking towards the north for the longest time, but I think it's time that now we look at Africa. The global politics are also telling us that there should be a shift in some of the things that we are doing and the way we are doing things, and Africa is the way to go.
It's been a decade now this partnership has been, fostering, and we can see is growing stronger and stronger. What is the secret behind this partnership? Because I've attended many events that South Africa and Tunisia has collaborated in different aspects of science. The last one that I attended was about water. How strong is this partnership?
Oh, our partnership has gone stronger and stronger. And I think it is also based on leadership. If the leadership supports that, which is something that is happening now, our leaders are also saying to us, you need to work together as Africa. And also the commitment. I mean, if you work with people like Ambassador Karima Bado, who are always enthusiastic and want to see things happening, the likes of Hasna Tizao, who will keep you on your toes. There is no way you can just sit back and relax. And from the previous work that we did, like I said, leadership and commitment, if our principals or our leaders were not committed in giving us funding to start the joint calls, we wouldn't be where we are. I mean, just last month in July, Minister Nzimande visited Tunisia just to strengthen further the relations. He was invited by his counterpart. And of course, when we got there, one of the things that they spoke about was to make sure that we strengthen this partnership. They also give resources towards that, because there's nothing that we can do if there are no resources. So it has gone stronger, and it's going stronger every day because of the commitment from our leaders.
During the closing sessions of the event, you made very important remarks on the importance of this collaboration that you are talking about, but also inviting other African states. We've seen, different ambassadors that were here attending as well. You made a call that those are open, that you are inviting them to come. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yes, through the Science Capital Diplomacy for Africa, we are saying we want to work with all embassies that are based in South Africa. And from where I'm coming from, as I mentioned, that I'm from the Africa Bilateral Cooperation Unit, we don't only want to work with Tunisia, but we also want to work with other African countries. I mean, even from the SADC region. It will be nice one day to have a similar event with Botswana, Eswatini, or everywhere. We have done some work with other countries like Kenya, Tanzania, and whoever, but I think this needs to grow. And the reason why also the Embassy of Tunisia invited other embassies is to show that we are together as Africans, and it doesn't even have to end as a bilateral. We can have trilaterals and even take it further than that. So we would really love to work with everyone. The space has been created. It is there. Whoever is interested, there are many topical issues that we can address together as Africans. Science knows no borders, so we need to talk all the time, and we need to make sure that we also empower our people and give them, they spoke about skills all the time in the meeting. I think we need to do that.
We saw the young Tunisians that are very proud of themselves for the milestones that they have achieved in science and technology. To the young South African ladies or women, what is your message from the impression that the young Tunisians have showed to us here at the event?
What I will say to our young South Africans is that opportunities are there. Please grab them. As a South African myself, I wish I would have grown during this time. I think I would have gone places. There are opportunities that are offered by our other African countries, your Egypt, your Kenya, Tanzania, Tunisia, for scholarships, even visiting on a short stint, just so you learn about other countries' cultures, also learn what they are doing. I think South Africans need to do that. If you would have heard from the discussions, there are people who actually migrated to South Africa, who wanted to just start afresh, came here knowing no one, started a new job, and they have grown through the ranks, and you can hear how much they appreciate South Africa. I think we can do the same. I know as South Africans, we are more comfortable in our space, but we also need to get at least exposure and know what happens in other countries. I think that will also make us to also appreciate ourselves and our country if we go out and see what our people are doing, other cultures and everything. There's a lot to learn from each other. So I will say to South Africa, grab the opportunities. We do send these opportunities, but our cry is that they are not taken up the way we would love them to be.
Michael Mbewe reporting there. And we continue with Africa World Hour. We hopefully are set to speak about this in just a moment. A group of United Nations experts urging authorities in Mali to free anti-corruption campaigner Mamadou Dembele. So we are still trying to get a hold of our guest there. But in the meantime, let's tell you about this. Mediclinic Southern Africa releasing its 2025 Corporate Social Investment Report outlining 7 years of pro bono surgeries, free patient transport and employee-led outreach. The group says the findings highlight the value of collaboration between the public and private sectors in making healthcare more accessible. Channel Africa's Lebogang Mabange has more.
The newly released report captures Mediclinic's impact between April 2018 and March 2025, showing more than 1,400 pro bono surgeries performed at its hospitals and thousands of patients transported free of charge through its subsidiary ER24. Bob Govender, Industry Affairs Executive at Mediclinic Southern Africa, explains the purpose behind the report.
The 2025 CSI report shows much work and collaboration is still needed. We are certainly on the right track, but these challenges cannot be solved alone, hence the focus on partnerships. Our CSI initiatives are underpinned by a common goal, enhancing and improving the quality of lives through our medical expertise and training programs. Over the years, our CSI initiatives have been proactive in nature and solely focused on doing the work on the ground to positively impact lives.
According to Govender, pro bono surgeries remain at the center of its initiatives. These partnerships involve specialists working with public hospitals to help reduce waiting times for life-changing operations. He outlines the scale of these interventions.
Pro bono surgeries fall under our Tier 1 CSI pillar and are comprised of direct partnerships with public hospitals to provide pro bono surgeries. These partnerships have delivered more than 1,400 free procedures, with ER24 transporting nearly 9,500 patients who received free transportation to hospitals in 2024 alone. The types of procedures that we have completed thus far include over 200 orthopedic procedures, about 160 gynecological procedures, over 480 cataract procedures, and 150 urological procedures.
Mediclinic says collaboration with both public and private sector partners has been key in achieving these outcomes, particularly in helping to address surgical backlogs that affect patients in need of urgent care. Govender stresses the importance of partnerships.
We have seen great success in collaborating with our colleagues across the public sector, enabling us to find workable solutions for those who are in most need. This has been instrumental in assisting with clearing some of the surgical backlogs and the waiting times across particular procedures. We hope to continue forging new, meaningful collaborative efforts, not only with the public sector, but with other private sector role players as well.
While the report highlights progress made over the past 7 years, Mediclinic insists their work is far from complete, emphasizing that the future of healthcare delivery in South Africa depends on stronger partnerships across the sector. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
Well, from news headlines to headlining of shows, we talk about the city of Durban in South Africa about to satellite with music, culture and innovation at the Music Imbizo. And of course, Imbizo is the South African word which means gathering, if you haven't heard it before. So for this year, it takes place at the International Convention Center from the 26th to the 30th of August, so meaning it's already underway, with the theme At the Root of Innovation is Culture, Creativity, and the Power of IP. So this year promises a festival of ideas, so to speak, performances, conversations shaping Africa's creative economy. To speak to me now about it, to get the inside scoop, South African artist, filmmaker, and participant at the Imbizo, Lex Lafoy. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Greetings, good evening to your Channel Africa listeners. And excited to speak about the Imbizo.
So tell us about what you do first. Introduce us to yourself, your work, and how your participation at this Imbizo is important not only for you, but for festival goers as well.
Thank you so much. So my name is Lex Lafoy. I am a rapper, writer, creative project manager. I am a BASA, that's Business and Arts South Africa Cultural Producers Program graduate of 2022. I'm a filmmaker, events producer, and I am also doing my honors in health and community psychology. So I really operate where the wellness, the creative, and the corporate intersect. That's me. Mm-hmm. And I am participating tomorrow at the Imbizo at 1 p.m. I will be part of an urban culture panel discussion alongside other professionals in the industry. And at 3:20 tomorrow, my documentary titled The Lexicon 2.0 Project mini documentary will be screened as part of the Imbizo Film Festival taking place within the wider Imbizo.
So give us a bit of an appetizer about your documentary. What's it about? What was the intention behind it?
Absolutely. So the Lexicon 2.0 project is an album that I released last year, which held music that was over 10 years old. And unfortunately, at the time when I recorded the project, a body of work that was worked on between 2012 and 2013, as an independent artist signed to a then small independent label, myself and the label had some contractual issues and I was not able to release the music at the time. So the story is really about reclaiming one's work. It's a story of victory. As we know, we've heard of many, especially females in the music industry, but of course it's widespread across gender. We've heard of multiple stories of artists who have lost their work, due to contractual issues. So for me, this is really a story of success. It's a story of coming full circle. It's a story of reclaiming one's work and telling the story, living to say, this is a part of me that exists in time, and this has contributed to who I am today. Yeah.
It's very sad that a lot of the time consumers of artists' works, I mean, it's great for you that they enjoy your work, that they're exposed to it, but they're very ignorant to, and not by choice, the struggles that you have, especially when it comes to intellectual property. Just give us a sense of what you have to go through to have your work published. I mean, I have musician friends and, they say, no, I've got to own my masters. And just to see what they go through to make sure that they own their work. It's somewhat silly to even think that people have to go through so much.
Absolutely. The music industry is a giant. It is a jungle, and truly, it tests one's character. It tests one's abilities, not only creatively but cognitively, because there's so much that creative IP entails. So just to let the listener know who doesn't know the process of the song making and the business side of music making in general, is that I, as an artist, will write a song, because I'm also a lyricist and a songwriter. There are also others who are only vocalists and who employ songwriters or lyricists for them. Within my story, I write my own music. I go into a studio, I record that music, and here's where the tricky part lies. So as an independent artist, taking it gradually but more thoroughly, I pay for those sessions. So I will pay a music engineer, I will pay for that studio time, I will pay for that beat, to own that beat, so that I can leave that session with those masters, having paid for that session, owning that intellectual property. I will then ensure that that music is mixed and mastered, making it broadcast ready. Once that is ready, I will then have to do all the paperwork for that song. So I will register it with SAMRO. I will register it with RISA. I will register, if there's a music video, with RAV. I will register it with Capasso. And so and also the paperwork between the artist and the producer, and if there are other collaborators on the song, I will create and sign what is called a writer's share agreement, which states on paper that myself and the other composers or the other authors on the song are all rightful legal shareholders to that song. So in an instance where there is commercial exploitation, so if a song is used in an advert, if it's used in a film, that would ensure that everybody who owns the song intellectually, be it through composing a beat or through authorship, which is songwriting, that would ensure that those owners of the intellectual property receive monies that are due to them. So that is a writer's share agreement. Then you have I'm
getting exhausted just listening to you.
Then the last bit to close on this topic is you then have an artist-producer agreement, which basically says between yourself and the beat maker, if you are not the beat maker, hey, I paid you this amount of money, I now own the beat, however we will, going forward, always earn royalties, shared royalties. So there's a lot behind a song, and then of course one has to promote, create press releases, send it to radio so that amazing channels like Channel Africa can play our music. It's endless, I won't lie. And
tell me something, then the advent of artificial intelligence, you know, it either aids or impedes, but we've seen people being ripped off, but we've also seen it create its own music, its own artists. How does that impact you as artists? Is it good? Is it bad? What are the blind spots that exist in your being able to have agency over your work? What happens to it beyond the ownership aspect of it?
That is an extremely relevant topic to tackle in 2025. Last year, within the Music Imbizo program, there was actually a panel discussion. I was invited to the panel discussion. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. However, I did recommend two amazing people in my place, and I'll tell you who these people are and why they're relevant to your question. So there was an advert that we created last year for Samsung in promotion of the South African Olympics team. This song was created in collaboration with AI and human artists. So I was on the song, Questa was on the song, the Soweto Youth Choir was on the song, Jeremy Loops was on the song. So what the agency behind the campaign, which is two amazing people, the agency is called Monkey Donkey Agency, and they are specialists in AI. So what the agency sets out to show is how AI and humans can work together. As we know, there's a lot of fear mongering online. You know, people saying AI is stealing our jobs, it's stealing the
Yes.
work of artists, it's stealing creatives' work. But let's remember, I mean, for example, my mom is a lawyer, and we were having this discussion. AI will always need human intelligence, human moral, human common sense, human understanding to guide it. It will always need that because remember, we're dealing with machines. And so they can only work within the parameters that are set out before them. So to answer your question, it's a wonderful time to work with AI. I do not believe AI will take over. I believe that we can work hand in hand. And if people attend, networking sessions, Imbizos, conferences like the Music Imbizo, I'd urge them to find out more, to research, to do their own reading, to find out how AI and humans can work together, because the truth is there's a lot of collaboration to be done. AI is a tool. It can be used to assist us, but it cannot replace the human mind. Let me say that.
Lex, you live in a very interesting time. As in your generation, you are a musician, you're a filmmaker, and that is something generations ago would not have been considered as a job, as an income earner, or even being part of an income stream. The state of the creative economy, is there greater awareness? And is it more structured that you can avoid some of the exploitation that unfortunately is embedded in the entertainment industry? A lot of the time, the people who see you, who watch you, they think, oh, it's because, you are on TV, they see you online, it means you make a lot of money, you're raking it in. But there is a lot of exploitation that takes place.
Especially in Women's Month, if I can say especially for women. Let me say this. As an independent artist, as a creative, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves, to read, to find out what every part of the music, entertainment, and media industry entails. Because if we don't have that information, we become vulnerable for abuse, we become vulnerable for exploitation. And so, like many before me, I have also been exploited. I have also had to learn the hard way and be moved into a space of empowerment, to be moved into a space of learning and doing for oneself. So yes, there definitely is a lot of room for exploitation. And in an era where mental health is a huge challenge for creatives and artists especially. Let me say this. When you as a creative or you as an artist choose to work with a manager, an agency, or a label, oftentimes artists are merely seen as assets to generate income. And so I urge artists to also have a strong team behind them, strong family structure, strong support structure behind them. Have someone you can consult with legally, have someone you can consult with that you trust, because the truth is, it is a dog-eat-dog industry. It is an industry where if you do not know any better, chances are you will fall prey to exploitation. And so, yes, speaking about gender, once again, in Women's Month, it especially happens with young women. In the industry, we see, as much as there's a rise of gender equality, we see a lot of men still predominantly owning labels, owning studios, owning masters, owning career paths, wanting to have the final say. And so especially in Women's Month, I urge female creatives, female artists to empower themselves, make your own money, even if you're not making all your money through your music itself. I earn income through various, I do events, I do film, I do music, I'm speaking in panels, so I would urge artists, do not rely on your music alone to create an income. It's extremely volatile. I mean, even the best of the best, we see them doing brand endorsements. We see them now overlapping into the lane of influencers. We see artists now in film as well. As a creative, one really has to research, do the self-work, gain self-knowledge, discover what all your strengths are, and learn to make those viable forms of income. We cannot rely on our music and our music alone. I mean, if we look at the way that streaming income is designed, artists, we're earning something like 0.0001 cents per stream. So we're forced to look elsewhere. We're forced to look at live performances. We're forced to look at sync deals, at licensing deals. And so that would be my message to artists is, yeah.
Thank you. I see I got you going there. And I appreciate it. Lex, thank you so much. And all the best for tomorrow. A great note to end it on, just to say, one's got to diversify their work portfolio, so to speak, because in these hard times you can't just rely on one income stream. Lex Lafoy, what a true pleasure, inspiring South African artist, filmmaker, and she will be participating at this Imbizo, the music Imbizo, taking place in Durban. And while we're still feeling nice, and she spoke about Women's Month, Shayla, it is tapering off tomorrow, effectively, because the 30th is the last day.
Yeah.
And is it, I don't know, I tend to go throughout Women's Month and not really think about it, because nothing really special other than events is really done to...
That is true.
Right?
That is true. I wonder what we're supposed to feel. How are we supposed to feel during this month?
When
as
they
women?
take 200 Rand off your gel and pedicure price, like the sum total of how wonderful it is to be a woman.
No.
Anywho.
Listen, let me try and put a smile on your face. So there's a young lady, her name is Yo Meal on TikTok, and she went about making sushi using pap.
I think I heard, I either saw, I saw her on Instagram.
So this got me thinking. Right? There is, to an extent, a reclamation of identity through cuisine that we're seeing in the context of the African continent. How is this featuring in the restaurant industry? Are we seeing that as well? I mean, I don't think sushi pap will make it. But how are we reclaiming identity through storytelling in food? And that's what we're going to be talking about.
I suppose it's kind of like reimagining what we're used to. In a different interpretation, because I mean there are a lot of things that do that. The origin of pasta, that is contested. So it just goes to show that what you think you actually don't really know, because it's something you should know, because you may actually be the what do you call it? Your people may actually be the originators of the idea, but we're just not exposed to it.
I think what's interesting for me is I know that we tend to dig deep into history, and then we have Jollof Wars at that. However, people saying, listen, I'm going to look ahead and I'm going to forge my own path. I'm going to tell my own story, right? And it's in the little things. It's like using African grains to make pasta. It's in the tiny
Your
changes.
couscous.
Yes.
Can I tell you a secret?
Tell me, ma'am.
And this is now going to be an open secret, so I invite anybody who'd like to change my mind. I have never had good jollof.
What's happy? You are stressing me.
Honestly,
what do you mean?
The first, and I think it was the first and the last, or maybe I've tried it 2 or 3 times. It tasted like Mackenzie tomato paste, and I was like, no, man. Like I like to cook. I'm a good cook.
Yeah.
So this is like, no, I'm sure this is not the jollof that they speak about. So somebody please convince me.
We have to.
Send it to the SABC Radio Center.
Please.
Just don't poison me. I said, please. I'd like to live.
Absolutely.
All right. That's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour. Up next, African Diaries with Shayla and Kumana. From us, it's good night.